It was a small box. No name, no note, no warning. Just sitting there. On our porch in Savannah, Georgia. 2 days before my daughter's wedding. I picked it up. It was light, too light, but there were holes. Tiny punctures. Like something inside needed to breathe. My wife froze. She stared at the box, then at me. And she whispered, "Thomas, don't open it." I felt my pulse spike, like a cold hand just gripped the back of my neck. Hard. I turned it slowly in my hands. Cardboard, taped edges. A standard delivery label, no return address, nothing that said who sent it. But I knew exactly who did, because 2 days ago I told my daughter the truth. That I was canceling her $25,000 wedding gift. After what she did, after the lies, the debt, the betrayal, it was time. She hung up on me, blocked my number, said I'd regret this. And now I was holding her silence, her revenge, in a box that hissed when I tilted it. I felt the chill settle in my chest. My fingers were shaking. Elaine, the woman I've loved for 35 years, she took a step back and said, "Thomas, it's moving." And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was war, a silent one, cold, calculated. And it started with a box. Thomas Ellison was the kind of man who didn't talk much. But when he did, people listened. He was 62, retired, lived in Savannah, Georgia his whole life. A city full of moss-covered trees, slow summers, and old-fashioned pride. He built everything from the ground up. No loans, no shortcuts. 40 years as an electrical engineer, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. He'd come home tired. But never too tired to sit down for dinner with his wife Elaine. They'd been together for 35 years. Best friends. The kind of couple who shared glances across crowded rooms and still laughed at the same jokes from the 90s. Thomas wasn't rich, but he was solid, respected, and above all, he believed in doing right by his family, especially his daughter, Alyssa, his pride, his world. He held her for the first time in '95 during a thunderstorm, and in that moment he promised her 2 things: that he'd protect her, and that he'd never let her down. He meant it. He kept every promise. Every late-night hospital visit, every parent-teacher meeting, every tuition payment. He did it all. No complaints. Because that's what fathers do. Right. But what no one tells you is sometimes the child you protect the most grows up to hurt you the deepest. And Thomas was about to find that out. Elaine was the calm to Thomas's storm. The gentle voice behind every hard decision. The steady breath in a house that rarely paused. They met in 1987 at a Sunday flea market in downtown Savannah. She was selling old books. He was just trying to find a screwdriver. He never found the tool, but he found her, and that was enough. Elaine didn't need much. A clean porch, a good story, and someone who'd love her without noise. She supported Thomas through every overtime shift, every sleepless night when Alyssa had the flu, every moment he thought he couldn't go on. She was soft-spoken, but not weak. Elaine had a way of looking at you that made you rethink everything you were about to say. And when it came to Alyssa, she was everything. They braided hair on Saturday mornings, made pancakes shaped like hearts, wrote little notes and left them in lunchboxes for school. Alyssa was her sunshine, her mirror, her future. But something changed. The laughter faded. The texts got shorter. And eventually, the calls stopped altogether. Elaine noticed before Thomas did. She said things like, "She's tired, that's all. She's just busy with work." But deep down she felt it. Felt the distance growing. Felt her daughter slipping through her fingers. And one day she'd look Thomas in the eyes and say, I think she's gone. And we just didn't notice. Alyssa used to run barefoot in the backyard. Hair tangled, knees scraped, but always smiling. She once told Thomas, "I'm gonna build a castle right here, Daddy, and you'll be the king forever." He believed her. She was curious, sharp, always top of her class, science fairs, debate team, college scholarship. Thomas and Elaine called her their miracle. Born after 2 miscarriages, held tighter than most, loved harder than words could ever show. They gave her everything, not because she asked, but because she never did, until she moved to Los Angeles. At first it was just distance, time zones, missed calls. Then came the silence, the shift, the change in tone. She started talking faster but saying less, started needing things: money for rent, help with taxes, a small loan to cover a temporary emergency. Thomas said yes every time, because that's what fathers do, right? Elaine worried. She noticed Alyssa never asked how they were, just how much they could send. Then Alyssa met Cody, a startup guy, charismatic, always on the verge of the next big thing. Alyssa called him her. Thomas called him a walking red flag, but he stayed quiet, trusted her, until one day she asked for $25,000. Not for debt, not for bills, for a wedding, a celebration, a promise built on a foundation Thomas didn't trust anymore. And this time he said no. The first time Alyssa asked for money, it was for textbooks. $300. Sophomore year. College dorm still smelled like ramen and lavender spray. Thomas sent the money within 5 minutes. No questions, no hesitation. Next came rent. $1,200. She said her roommates bailed. Thomas wired it that night. Then a car. Used, but decent. Alyssa needed it to get to her internship. He co-signed the loan. Elaine was nervous. Thomas said, "It's what fathers do." And then it became monthly. Alyssa stopped explaining. Stopped saying thank you. Just, "Dad, I need this. Can you send it by tonight?" At first, Thomas felt useful, important, like he was still guiding her even from 3,000 miles away. But slowly, he started to wonder, why did she never call when she didn't need anything? Why did her voice only soften when asking for something? Elaine started keeping track. In 18 months, they had sent over $17,000. No receipts, no updates, just silence between transfers. When Thomas brought it up once, Alyssa laughed. "You're not broke, Dad. Don't be dramatic." That night, Thomas sat in his study, stared at the framed photo of Alyssa's kindergarten graduation. Pink dress, missing tooth. She had drawn a heart on the back. "Daddy is my superhero." Now, he didn't feel like one. He felt used, and he hadn't even said no yet. It came on a Sunday afternoon. Thomas was fixing a leaky faucet. Elaine was watering her roses. His phone buzzed. Alyssa. First call in 3 weeks. Her voice was sweet, sweeter than usual. "Hey, Daddy, got a minute?" Thomas wiped his hands, smiled. He hadn't heard that tone since she was 12. Of course. She talked about the wedding, the venue, the dress, the golden hour photographer Cody insisted on. Then came the pause, a silence just long enough to feel heavy. "So, we're a little short, and I was wondering." Another pause. "Would you be willing to help us out?" Thomas adjusted his glasses. "How much?" "Only $25,000, just for the deposit and catering. We'll pay the rest, promise." 25. Not 200, not 2,000. $25,000. Like she was asking for a glass of water. Thomas didn't answer right away. He looked across the room. saw Elaine freeze in place, roses dripping from her hands. He cleared his throat. Alyssa, that's a lot of money. Yeah, but you helped with college. This is just as important. You said Cody's parents are wealthy. They are. But they've done enough. That stung. He didn't say anything. Just let the silence speak. She filled it. You don't have to answer now. Just don't make me beg. And then she hung up. Not a goodbye, not an I love you. Just pressure, wrapped in sugar. And for the first time, Thomas felt it. This wasn't a request. It was a transaction. 3 days passed. Thomas didn't sleep well. He kept running numbers in his head, tuition, rent, the car, the favors. Now, $25,000 for 1 day. He wasn't angry, just unsettled. That night he sat at the kitchen table, laptop open. Elaine came in with the tea, sat beside him. Are you going to send it? He shook his head slowly. Something doesn't sit right. He searched. Not Alyssa, Cody. Cody Brooks, 3 links down. He found it. A blog post titled, How I Lost $80,000 on a Meme Coin. Written by Cody, dated 6 months ago. The post was casual, almost proud. He wrote about flipping NFTs, buying the dip, and waiting for the moon. In one sentence, he said, My fiancé and I went all in, no regrets. Thomas sat still, hands clenched. Elaine leaned over, read the line, then whispered, They gambled our money. Thomas didn't reply. He just stared at the screen. The girl he raised with bedtime stories and piggyback rides had taken the roof he built and tried to flip it for crypto. No apology, no honesty. Just a request for more. He closed the laptop, slowly, deliberately, and finally said, No, not this time. Thomas waited until Sunday evening. Same time Alyssa usually called if she ever did. This time he called first. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hey, Dad, did you think about it? He took a breath. Steady, calm. I did. And no. Silence. Heavy, sharp. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, Alyssa. I can't do this. You can't or you won't. Both. Another pause. This one colder. Wow, after everything. Thomas swallowed hard. After everything. I realized I wasn't helping you. I was enabling you. That's not fair. Neither is gambling your future on coins and promises. Cody made a mistake. We're trying to recover. By spending more, Alyssa, this isn't a loan. It's a rescue. Her voice cracked. So you're punishing me on my wedding week? No, Thomas said quietly. I'm protecting you, even if you don't see it yet. There was a click. The line went dead. No goodbye, no I love you. Elaine looked up from across the table. How'd she take it? Thomas stared at the wall, like I'd taken something from her. Elaine touched his hand. Maybe you gave her something instead. The email came at 2:13 a.m. Subject line. If this is who you are now, then so be it. Thomas found it in the morning. His coffee still steaming. The sky outside still gray. He clicked and read. I don't recognize you anymore. You raised me to believe in support, in love, in family. And now you've become cold, judging, small. Each line hit like a stone. You talk about money like it's everything, but you forget I'm your only daughter. Do you even want to be part of my life anymore? Because if not, I can make it easy. Cody and I will figure this out without your help, without your presence. You're not invited to the wedding. That line, Thomas read it 3 times. Elaine stood behind him, reading over his shoulder. She said nothing, but her hand gently touched his shoulder. She's angry, Thomas whispered. She's hurting. Elaine nodded. And she's wrong, but she's still our daughter. Thomas closed the email, didn't respond. Not yet. He walked to the window, looked out at the street. the same driveway where Alyssa once rode her bike in wobbly little circles. He whispered to no one, to her, maybe even to himself, "You'll come back, one day." But something inside him wasn't sure anymore. Thomas didn't sleep much that week. Everywhere he turned there were reminders of Alyssa. The hallway photos, the dent on the wall from her old skateboard, her childhood room still pink at the corners. The wedding was 4 days away, and she meant it. No invitation, no call, no olive branch. Elaine tried to stay busy, gardening, baking, pretending. But Thomas, he did something else. He went into the garage, pulled out the cedar box, the one he had built himself years ago. It still smelled like varnish and memory. He opened it, placed inside a handwritten letter, then a small leather-bound journal filled with notes he'd written every birthday since she was born. 27 entries. Next a necklace. Tiny. Gold. It had belonged to his mother. She always said, "Give this to the girl who changes your world." Thomas thought he'd already done that. He wrapped them carefully, tied it all with a ribbon, wrote one word on the tag, Alyssa. Then he placed it in the back of the closet. Not the mail, not the porch. He didn't send it, because gifts aren't meant to convince. They're meant to be received. And some hearts just aren't ready. Not yet. The wedding day arrived. Thomas didn't check his phone, didn't scroll through social media. He just sat on the porch. Elaine brought him tea. "Do you want to know how it went?" He shook his head. "Not today." They sat in silence. Wind brushed the leaves. The old wind chime rang softly like it remembered something he forgot. Hours passed, until dusk. That's when the call came. Not from Alyssa, not from Cody. From Jordan, Alyssa's childhood best friend. The one who called Thomas Pops all through high school. He hesitated before answering, but curiosity won. "Mr. Carter, it's Jordan." "Hi, kid, everything okay?" A pause. "You haven't heard." Thomas straightened. Elaine looked up. "Heard what?" "They canceled the ceremony. Last minute." Thomas blinked. "What?" Guests were seated. Music had started. Then Alyssa walked off, alone, no dress, just tears. "Why?" Jordan hesitated. "She found something. This morning. Said it changed everything." Thomas's hand trembled slightly. "What did she find?" Jordan exhaled. "I don't know, but I think it was from you." Thomas sat still. He hadn't mailed anything, hadn't sent a word. But maybe someone else had. Or maybe some gifts find their way, even when we stop delivering. It was nearly midnight. Thomas sat alone in the living room. Lights dimmed, TV on but silent. Elaine had gone to bed. Then the doorbell rang. Just once. Not urgent, not hesitant, just there. Thomas opened the door slowly. There she was, Alyssa. Hair undone, no makeup, red eyes. In her hands the cedar box. His heart stopped. "Hi, Dad." He didn't speak, couldn't. She held the box close to her chest as if afraid it would vanish. "I found it in the closet. Elaine gave me the key. Said it was meant for me." Thomas exhaled slowly. "I didn't know she'd—" Alyssa shook her head. She didn't say a word. "I was looking for my old earrings, found your handwriting instead." She looked up, eyes brimming. "You wrote every birthday, even when I forgot yours." She placed the box on the table by the door. "I canceled the wedding, Dad. Not because of Cody, not because of the money." She paused. "Because I realized I was marrying the wrong version of me." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry." 3 words. More valuable than $25,000. More powerful than any wedding gift. Thomas stepped forward, opened his arms, and for the first time in years, she walked into them. They sat on the couch, just the two of them. No TV, no distractions. Only the low hum of a ticking clock. Alyssa held the leather-bound journal in her lap. Her fingers traced the edges slowly, as if memorizing it with touch. I read every page, she whispered. You wrote about my first bike ride, how I cried when I fell but got back up. You wrote about my 12th birthday, when Mom forgot and you baked the cake yourself. She looked at him, and then I read the entry from last year. Thomas tilted his head. I didn't remember writing anything big. You didn't, she said softly. Just one line. She opened the book. Page 26. You wrote, she's still finding herself, but I'll always be here watching, waiting, loving. Thomas swallowed hard. Alyssa blinked back tears. Dad, I haven't found myself yet, but I think I just started looking. Because of that line. She held up the necklace next. And this, it was Grandma's. I remember. She used to say it was only for someone who understood the weight of love. She smiled bittersweet. Today, I finally felt it. A moment passed. Then another. I was so angry, she said, but you didn't fight back. You loved me. Without asking for anything in return. She leaned into him. I want to become the daughter you wrote about. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window. Thomas was pouring coffee when Alyssa walked in still in her sweatshirt from the night before. She looked tired, but lighter, like a weight had been peeled away. Morning, she said gently. Morning, Thomas replied, handing her a mug. They sat at the table, steam rising between them. After a quiet sip, Alyssa took a breath. I called a few people last night. Jordan, Aunt Claire, even Pastor Robinson. Thomas looked up curious. Why? Because I want to do something, not a wedding, not a spectacle, but something real. He raised an eyebrow. Real. She smiled. This Saturday, in the backyard, a small gathering. Just close friends and family. Not to celebrate a marriage, but to celebrate coming home. Thomas didn't speak right away. His eyes welled up. You're sure? More than I've been about anything in years. Elaine walked in, hearing the last part. Should I bake the lemon pie? Alyssa laughed softly. Only if you make two. One for me, one for Dad. Elaine nodded. That sounds like love. Thomas reached across the table and gently took Alyssa's hand. Let's make this the day you find yourself again. She squeezed his hand back. With you there, I already have. Saturday arrived. The backyard was simple twinkle lights strung between trees, folding chairs arranged in a half circle, Elaine's lemon pies cooling on the table. Alyssa wore a pale blue dress, no veil, no bouquet, just barefoot on the grass. Thomas adjusted his tie. He hadn't worn one in years. Guests trickled in, neighbors, cousins, Jordan, even her old piano teacher. Laughter mixed with music. Old family stories floated like dandelions in the air. Elaine tapped a spoon to a glass. We're not here to say I do, she said, but to say I'm here. Alyssa stepped forward, eyes shining. Today is for healing, for letting go of blame, for remembering who we are before the noise. She looked at Thomas, and for showing up for the ones who never stop showing up for us. The crowd applauded. Thomas tried not to cry. Then a shadow appeared by the gate. It was Cody, not in a suit. No flowers, just jeans, a white shirt, and something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Alyssa's smile faltered. He raised a hand, didn't speak, just held up a small envelope. This was in my mailbox. No name. Just a note inside read, before you say forever. He stepped closer. I read it twice. He looked at Thomas. I think we need to talk. Alyssa froze. Elaine stepped back. Thomas's jaw tightened. The past wasn't quite done yet. The air shifted. The backyard moments ago so full of warmth turned still. All eyes were on Cody and the envelope in his hand. He walked slowly to the center. Alyssa met him halfway, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did it say?" Cody unfolded the note creased at the corners written in delicate, slanted ink. He began to read aloud. "Alyssa deserves truth more than tradition. Before she builds her forever, she must know the foundation she's standing on. Thomas Carter never gave up on her, even when she gave up on herself. And you, Cody, if you love her, you'll love the version of her who forgives and grows." Silence. A gust of wind rustled the trees. Thomas stepped forward. "I didn't write that." Alyssa blinked. Then, who did? From the back of the crowd, a hand rose. Elaine. She stepped forward, hands trembling but eyes clear. "I did." Gasps rippled through the guests. Elaine nodded. "I found the box, I read the journal, and I knew she needed to see it. So did he." She looked at Cody. It wasn't meddling, it was hope. Cody exhaled. "I didn't understand before, but now, I think I finally see what love is." He turned to Alyssa. "You're not broken. You're becoming." Alyssa looked at Cody, then at her father. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice didn't. "This isn't a love triangle," she said. "It's a love mirror. Each of you showed me a part of myself." She stepped back. "Dad, you taught me silent strength. Elaine, you reminded me that love doesn't need permission to act. And Cody, you were brave enough to face me even after I ran." She pulled something from her pocket. The necklace, the one from Grandma. She walked to her father, clasped it around his wrist like a bracelet. "It's yours now. You held on to love longer than anyone." Thomas's eyes welled up. She turned to Cody. "I don't know what comes next, but if I walk toward it, it'll be on my terms." Cody nodded, no pressure in his eyes. Only understanding. "Then let's take one step, together, even if it's just today." Alyssa smiled. "Today is all we ever had to get right." The guests applauded. Laughter returned. So did the music. Elaine brought out the pies. Jordan toasted to second chances. And Thomas, he sat beneath the tree watching his daughter dance barefoot on the grass. Not as a bride, not as a child, but as someone who had finally come home to herself. Revenge never looks so peaceful. Not all revenge is loud. Sometimes it looks like silence at the dinner table. A father leaving the light on. A daughter returning not to say "I'm sorry," but simply to sit and stay. Thomas never shouted. He never wrote letters that begged. He waited. And that somehow was louder than any confrontation. Elaine didn't argue. She didn't take sides. She simply placed the truth where it needed to be found and let it speak for itself. And Alyssa, she was the storm, the scar, the survivor. She learned that walking away doesn't erase pain, but walking through it might just heal you. She didn't reclaim love, she redefined it. Because sometimes the real gift isn't what's inside the box. It's who is still holding the door open when you're finally ready to come home. And that's what this story was always about, not revenge to destroy, but revenge to rebuild, to reclaim dignity, to return to self-worth. The kind of revenge that ends not with fury, but with forgiveness. Not with burned bridges, but with better ones. And as the sun set in that quiet Seattle backyard, one thing was clear. Some wounds don't leave scars. They leave roots. And love, real love, grows back stronger from every break. The music faded. Guests trickled out with hugs and quiet laughter. Elaine packed up the leftover pie. Jordan folded chairs. And Thomas, he stayed, sitting beneath the tree watching his daughter dance barefoot on the grass. She wasn't a bride, she wasn't a child. She was something more powerful, a woman who forgave. No grand speech, no dramatic hug. Just one glance back, a small smile. And then, she let it all go. Thomas didn't need her to say thank you. He had already heard it in the silence she allowed between them. in the way she didn't leave. And as dusk settled over Seattle, there were no fireworks, no endings. Only a light still on at the front porch, still waiting. Because the best stories, they don't end, they echo. Now, a quiet question for you. If someone you love walked away today, would you leave the door unlocked? Is there someone who left a gift for you and you never opened it? Share this story with someone who taught you love without saying a word, because sometimes the softest revenge is simply becoming whole again.